So it's been quite a year for you. Hi, Mary. Oh, that's very kind of you. Well,
are you going to join us, Mary?
This is great. Mary Meeker bringing me coffee. That's because you want more minutes.
It has, John, quite a year. You know, we've been up to a lot.
Yeah, well, you certainly have. As a matter of fact, I watched your stream of your recent analyst meeting and your Max developers meeting. You guys have had quite a year. It's been overshadowed a little bit, at least perhaps in the minds of the industry and observers of the industry, by this whole, shall we call it, tempest with Apple. What do you make of that? Is that past, or is this still an issue that you feel like is very present with you?
Well, I think it's kind of appropriate that you're calling this the theme of the conference, points of control, right? And I think it is all about how do you control what's happening in this new economy where there's so much technology disruption happening. There's a war happening for developers. There's a war to try and get the best applications for a particular platform and to keep that lead. And I think, as you pointed out at the beginning of your session, Adobe has always been about helping people create content for multiple devices, multiple platforms, and bringing the power of that rich media. And so I think Apple and Adobe are on different sides of that point of control. But to a large extent, the media doesn't want to let it go. And I think we've demonstrated that we're now on Android and HP WebOS and RIM. And, you know, Adobe is such a diversified company, but the news is only about that one issue.
Right. Well, I promise I'll let it go after this question. But I'm just curious, you said sort of on opposite sides. Can you define the sides for us? Can you say, well, this is how we view the world, and this is how perhaps Apple sees the world, and how they're different?
Absolutely. You know, our customers are anybody who's trying to create content or applications for a multi-platform world is our customer. And we want to be in a position where we can help them express their creativity, deliver that content, manage that content, and monetize that content across a variety of devices. And if standards don't exist in the world that enable them to do, whether it's casual gaming, rich internet advertisements, video on the web, we're going to help create that standard. And so we're all about a multi-platform, heterogeneous, open ecosystem. And that's what we're going to be focused on. And Apple would continue to like to keep that closed and proprietary and ensure that applications that are created for the iDevices only work on the iDevices if they're native applications. And, you know, so let the games begin, I guess. And I think you're seeing, as these multiple platforms emerge, our message is clearly resonating with customers, because it used to be that you created applications for the web, and then you created applications for one ecosystem on a mobile platform, and then another one came along. And we're just going to help create that content across all of these platforms. And the other thing is, you know, people make it out to be an HTML versus Flash debate. It really isn't. We're all about creating the best tools. If you want HTML, we'll create the best tools for HTML. If you want Flash, we'll create the best tools for Flash. And so I think it's described in a narrow way, and it really is about Adobe helping create content and applications for all platforms.
Well, let me ask you about that.
I thought you said one question.
Well, no, I didn't promise that about Flash. I promised that about Apple. It's possible that I might break that promise, but I'm going to try not to. So a Flash, again, my perception after reading a ton of stuff in preparation for this, and again, I'm not a coder or a developer per se, although we do a lot of development at FM, but I don't personally do it. So this may be a somewhat ignorant question, but isn't Flash somewhat imperiled by HTML5? Isn't the problems that Flash blossomed to address sort of being addressed by HTML5 for the most part, or how does Flash evolve in a world 2-3 years from now when that has become sort of the standard of the web?
Well, just let's look at, you know, some of the use cases that Flash is being used for right now on the web, and I think that could be instructive in sort of how we see this world evolve. Flash was really designed to help solve the issues of providing a rich media ecosystem in a multi-platform way. So it's used for rich internet advertisements, it's used for video, it's used for casual gaming. Increasingly, when you have rich internet applications that are being created for enterprise applications, you have probably hundreds of new companies that are creating a brand new environment for the enterprise using Flash as the UI. And I see in your points of control, you talk about Flash being used for that UI.
Yeah.
When you start to look at what's happening with HTML as it evolves, HTML is starting to take some of the use cases that Flash was used for, which was animation and interactivity, and start to expand that. And we welcome that because, then we'll go find another area to innovate in terms of pushing the envelope. And remember, Adobe makes its money by creating authoring tools for both the Flash platform, for the PDF platform, as well as for HTML. So it really isn't about the format, it's about what the customer wants to do, and Adobe helping them do that.
Could you see the capabilities and sort of the processes involved in Flash and other tools of yours moving into a cloud framework? And can you speak a bit to how that lays out and how that might happen in the next few years?
Sure. First, I think a lot of people in the audience may not even know that we're one of the largest SaaS software companies in the world right now. With our Omniture acquisition, as you know, John, we process 1 trillion transactions per quarter over the web. And so we recognize that the world's moving to this environment where a mobile device connected to the cloud is the way people want to experience media. And, we've done many things with Flash already that enable people to do that. We're working with Google, for example, in terms of indexing all the Flash content that's out there on the web. So they have a Flash server that's running as part of their search network, which allows them to index Flash over the network. If you're creating an enterprise application and you want the content to be delivered over the server, we have our enterprise business, which is $1 billion in revenue, that's actually delivering those user experiences directly from a server in the cloud. And so we've already moved past where Adobe was only responsible for building desktop applications to actually delivering all of this through the cloud.
Can we talk a bit about Omniture? It's been, how long has it been? A year and a half since the acquisition?
A little less than that. Actually, we announced it September 16th of last year.
So just over a year.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of many defining moments in the history of Adobe, but that was, at the time, and we spoke then, a bit of at least initially, a head scratcher for some people, like, well, you're getting into advertising? But how is that going? How has it changed what Adobe means to your customer set? And it certainly brought a whole new set of customers, or perhaps the same customers with different needs. So how is that working?
It's going great, John. When you think about what our customers were asking us to do, maybe you talk about a customer like Condé, and Condé was saying, we have to take all of our...
This is Condé Nast.
Condé Nast.
Yeah.
We have to take all of our content and applications and get that out to the broadest set of devices. But as every business moves online, we really want to know what customers are doing there. And so we think it really is the confluence of both art and science. And Adobe has always been known to do the best creative job in the world. But if you're moving your business online and you're not measuring it, it really isn't as effective in terms of knowing exactly what your customers were doing. And so we were determined to, really close the workflow between what people were doing on the creation side and what they were doing on the monetization side. And so, we have record revenue for Omniture. We've announced a new digital publishing suite that enables people to take all of the content that they have, put it on a server in the sky, and actually not only deliver it to multiple devices, but actually have all the analytics built in. And you can also then insert the appropriate ads. And so we're really getting to the point where, in addition to helping people create content, we're helping them monetize it.
So are you at all concerned? I mean, one of the things, I think it's an interesting vision, this idea that you help people create content, you help through the Flash platform and others, PDF, you help people distribute content. Now you're getting into the cloud-based services of distributing it into the cloud. And then you, with Omniture, help them understand how to create audience experiences and manage and learn from how audiences engage with that content such that they can make money from that content. But you yourself never have gotten into the game of making money from content directly, such as Apple, sorry, there's that word, buying Quattro, right, and getting into the advertising game, for example. Is this ever going to be something that you would do?
We have no aspirations to be in the portal business or to be in the content business, but our revenue does scale as the amount of content created increases, and that happens in multiple ways, John. The first is clearly as more application developers and creatives are using our tools, we make money. But when you're streaming all of that Flash video on the web, we deliver servers that enable people to stream that content. With our digital publishing suite, as people are delivering millions of, whether it's a newspaper or a magazine on the web, we monetize that on a transaction basis. With Omniture, as the amount of content that's delivered scales, we monetize it. So again, we're clearly leveraging the assets that we have to scale as our customers scale, but we're not going to compete with them.
One of the things about Flash that, you know, again, in doing my research, and I feel like I have to bring it up, because you see criticisms of Flash, and these are criticisms that are, you know, compounded and highlighted by Steve Jobs when his defense of why he doesn't use Flash. You pick through that, and you definitely see some holes, but you also see some criticisms which seem to stick. Processing power and so on. Are these, you know, what's your defense of that if you feel like it needs to be defended?
Flash has changed the world, and it's one of those technologies. When you change the world with what you deliver, you're always going to get your fans and supporters, and we have millions of Flash developers around the world, and we have our detractors. And I look at it and say, we have to continue to innovate and help people create and manage that content. As hardware devices become smaller, we have taken 20 years of technology that we've delivered and made that accessible on small mobile devices. It would actually be an easier technology to say, you know what, we're just going to completely disregard everything that the customers have created. And so there were so many people who felt that we were not going to be able to provide Flash on a mobile device, and we've done that. You know, we have the rocket scientists at Adobe who've been able to deliver that. And so maintaining that backward compatibility, allowing people to create content once and deliver it, is a huge technical challenge. We've stepped up to it, and we've delivered against that.
What do you, let me pivot for a second. We'll get out of the product thing. Just recently, your stock shot up. Well, there was a couple times actually that it sort of popped, but it really went up dramatically one day when there was a rumor that you and Steve Ballmer were having a meeting. Steve stopped by for a chat. First of all, did he stop by for a chat, and what did you talk about?
You know, Adobe is in this unique position where we have really tremendous partners. And I do meet with Steve periodically, and we continue to talk about how we can be a great ISV in terms of delivering great applications, not just for the Windows.
By that you mean independent?
As an independent company.
Software vendor.
As an independent software company. You know,
the highlight on that word, independent.
Absolutely independent. You know, we have had record revenue this year. You know, we've been driving record revenue. We're going to grow the company over 25% this year. We're going to grow earnings over 20%. And so by all accounts, we're having just a phenomenal year delivering value to our customers. And so we think there are three big opportunities for us as a company. The content authoring opportunity, helping people create content, deliver it. The online marketing optimization opportunity, the opportunity around Omniture, and we help people acquire customers online. We help them translate that into paying customers, and we help them understand exactly what's being transacted online. And our digital enterprise. The consumerization of IT is happening. Adobe is squarely in the middle of helping every enterprise deliver a really great user experience on top of their transaction systems. Three large multi-billion-dollar opportunities, and we're focused on delivering value and driving revenue and growth.
But so why do you think the market so much likes the idea of you being acquired by Microsoft?
I think it has less to do with Adobe and Microsoft, and every single time when there's a potential acquisition, a potential acquiree's company's stock jumps. So it's the nature of the beast.
Nature of the beast. I got it. Now, let me ask you about going back to not just Flash, but to Omniture, and this is a theme I think that we'll talk about throughout the day, culminating with Mark Zuckerberg later this afternoon, which is privacy. Mm-hmm. As you get into what, when you had a desktop application business, this issue really didn't come up too much.
Right.
But as Flash has become, ubiquitous across the web, and marketers all use Flash, and now you marry the data that gets generated from Flash instances with the data at the back end of Omniture. Is your company engaged in this conversation around how this data is being used? And what do you think? There's an awful lot of legislation that's being either considered or bandied about. The new Congress has said that they're going to take this up and put it in the crosshairs. Where does Adobe, what's your stance on this in terms of user privacy and use of this data?
Well, first let's talk about it from the point of view of the customer, right? I mean, when you look at Amazon and what Amazon has done with recommendations, if done in a tasteful, correct manner, the ability for advertisers and publishers to deliver personalized, targeted content, people will accept that. And I think we're approaching the point where the holy grail of advertisers and publishers being able to deliver personalized, targeted content as you start to collect data in real time and as you start to adapt it in real time is there. And so by definition, it's going to also have conflict with this whole issue of privacy. And and the only way through that, John, is to actually tackle the issues head on. And I think if we start to say, you know what, you're not going to be able to collect data, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. Our philosophy is make it transparent for the customer so that the customer really knows what data is being collected.
Right.
And with Flash, we have 800 million panels, as you talk about. Our goal and our desire, and we do have a chief privacy officer, is to really say, how do we make sure that the customer is in control of what data is being collected? We've always taken the stance that we will not collect data without the customer knowing, but any real-time platform, by definition, will be able to collect data to serve this holy grail. How they do it and how they navigate the landmines that by necessary will exist, I think is going to be the challenge.
Yeah.
Not just for Adobe, but for us as an industry. That doesn't mean that you shy away from the problem.
Have you considered, or do you have a point of view on, there's differing points of view in the current administration on an idea which we're all familiar with, the equivalent of a do not call list, but this would be a do not collect data list. As an owner of a very large data service, is this something that concerns you?
First, on the Omniture stuff, I think it's important to remember that we don't own the data.
Right.
While we collect all of this data, we collect the data on behalf of the customer. And so Adobe does not use that data at all in a cross-domain way. So if you're General Motors or if you're Ford and you're collecting data through Omniture, they own the data. I continue to believe that what we have to do as a responsible industry consortium is to make it clear to a customer what data is being collected. And if the customer stipulates that they don't want any information to be collected, then that's what should happen.
Right. I'm not sure I would hear that exact same answer from everybody who's on this stage.
But you know what might happen then is that the customer may not have access to that entire service. And I think that's where the conflict's going to arise, which is if you want access to a particular consumer service, but you're not willing to share some data, then you may not have the rights to play in that playground.
Right. Right. I want to ask, there's mics right up here, so we're getting, it's amazing how quick the time goes, but we're getting low on time, so if anyone has questions for Shantanu, please come to the mics and ask them now. And I hate to do this, but I'm going to go back to, not to Apple, but to Android. And you said earlier when we were starting this conversation, in reference to the Apple question, you know, we're open, they're closed. We prefer open systems. We heard Eric say that as well. Some would argue definitions of open. For example, is Flash truly open, or is your software platform open? What is your definition of open?
Well, let's talk about the facts with respect to Flash, with respect to PostScript, with respect to PDF. Every single one of them has a defined specification that's available. We just shipped Acrobat 10. When you ship Acrobat 10, the definition of PDF is out there on a website, so people can create writers for that format, and people can create viewers for that format. And that's true of Flash as well. In terms of people who wish to create a Flash writer or a Flash viewer, that technology is out there and open. I think whether it's Android or whether it's Adobe, the thing that we also strive to do is make sure that it's not fragmented, because the value proposition really that we deliver to our customers is that you can actually create once and deploy many times. And so that is a balance, John, and it's a balance that whether it's Android or whether it's Adobe, with Flash or PDF, have to balance.
Right.
But I think we've done a really great job. With RIM, for example, we have provided extensions in Flash that are specific to the Playbook platform. And so it allows them to differentiate, while it allows content creators to create once and deliver many times. So that's my definition of open.
Right. And you don't believe Apple really fits that definition?
If it was open, we would have the ability to have a Flash plugin as part of the web browser.
And you still don't, right? There hasn't been any news in the last half hour.
No. I think you can download Beatles songs is what I've heard.
Question over here.
Yeah, so I've been using Adobe products, well, Echo, for about, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And Adobe today doesn't seem like that company that it was 15 to 20 years ago. And I've kind of lost the plot. I don't know what the heart and soul of Adobe is anymore. It feels too generic and too enterprise. What does Adobe stand for fundamentally?
That's a great question. You know, we believe that we are going to continue to change the world through digital experiences. If you think about the impact that Adobe has had, whether it's a newspaper, whether it's a magazine, whether it's a website, all the content that you're creating on your mobile devices, as well as what's happening with video on the web, Adobe has made that dramatic and lasting impact on how entire society communicates. Our heritage was on the authoring side, so we help people author all of that content. Increasingly, it's not just about the content creation, but it's about content management, it's about content delivery, and it's about content monetization. And so our vision continues to be, we will change the world through digital experiences, where you as a consumer, as a creator, are experiencing that is more diverse than it's ever been before. And so we're stepping up, and we're going to expand our offering to enable you to do that.
You just purchased a content management, enterprise-class content management system called Day.
That's right.
That's part of that, is it?
That's exactly right, because if you're trying to create this content and repurpose it, just being on the desktop without having a content management solution was inadequate from the point of view of our customers. And so we've become a solution provider, and we've expanded to provide that entire offering and workflow.
Over here.
On the issue of privacy, I think that, just saying that be transparent with the customer doesn't really cut it, because there's more parties involved. I mean, just the term customer is ambiguous, because there's the end user, of course, of whatever service. There's your customers, in a B2B sense, they're their partners of various kind. So, can you speak to that some more? Because I think just saying, it's not just a question of terms of service. It's a more complicated scenario.
When we think of privacy, the first thing that I think John was alluding to was what data is being collected. And, when data is being collected, is the consumer in charge or aware of what data is being collected? I think you raised the second issue, which is once this data is collected, even if the customer knows that the data is being collected, what is the company that's collecting the data going to do with it in terms of either syndicating it or selling it? But I again think that's part of the contract, so to speak, that happens between the customer and the company that's collecting the data. So are there thorny issues involved with privacy? Yes. Are we going to, as an industry, tackle them and address them? Absolutely. But again, you have to think about the customer benefits, and there's some very significant customer benefits that accrue as long as the customer is in charge.
Okay, thanks.
More over here.
So we've talked about mobile a bit, and it seems like there's a sort of a battle there. But it seems like there's also a battle brewing in the living room. And I'm just curious, what are your plans for the TV? What is your plan for connected TVs?
Again, that's a great question about, what's our plan for connected TVs. You're absolutely right. The multiverse is upon us in terms of multiple screens, and we talked about that a lot at Max, which is how do you have both the lean forward and the lean back experience. My belief is that most TVs are going to be IP connected. You're going to have the same ability to browse the web or create applications or look at widgets on internet connected TVs. Flash is already shipping, for example, on internet connected TVs with Samsung. I think you'll see that across the board in terms of any IP connected TV. And on the authoring side, really addressing this whole issue of adaptable content layout and how do you take content that was authored for a 6-inch screen and make that available on the 63-inch screen in your living room, and how do we help that is a technical problem that we're also doing. So on the runtime, we'll be available on IP-connected TVs, and on the authoring side, we're going to continue to adapt our applications to enable you to create content across all of those different screens.
We're running a bit late, so we can take just the last question quickly.
Hi there. Sorry, it's a little loud. Recently, Steve Jobs removed Flash from the MacBook Air and shipping Mac products, and since then, some users have become cognizant of the fact that without Flash, their systems have longer battery life, using HTML5 video instead of Flash, for instance. I wanted to ask if you think that video is a use case where Flash will continue to be important, or whether you'd recommend they use your HTML5 tools instead and use Flash for other things.
I'll just give you 2 data points to talk about that. The amount of Flash video that's being streamed over the network is exploding. When you think about live events, when you think about sporting events, the amount of Flash video, despite anything that you might read in the press, is actually going through the roof. And the second thing that I would say with respect to getting the Flash player, it's similar to what you do on Windows. The customers have to go get Flash player. Adoption of Flash Player 10.1, which is the latest version of Flash Player, has exceeded every other Flash player in history in terms of the number of people who do it. And if you have hardware acceleration, Flash video running on hardware accelerated devices is as efficient as any other technology on the planet.
So you'd say that there's my mic. I wanted to ask about battery life in particular, though. Are people getting equivalent battery life when the hardware is optimized?
Absolutely. They're getting better performance.
So would you say then that Flash is not optimized on the MacBook Air?
When we have access to hardware acceleration on any platform, we have demonstrated that the performance of Flash video is equal to or better than any other technology.
Does that mean that you don't have access to?
We have a beta that's now running that has hardware acceleration on the Macintosh. And feel free to download that.
But is that a point of control that maybe Steve's turning on and off depending on how he feels about you when he gets out of bed one day or the other?
What is absolutely fascinating, John, about the time that we live in is that every morning when you wake up, there's both competitors and partners. And so I think it's an exciting time with what's happening on multiple devices, what's happening with the cloud, and we are squarely in the middle of that discussion, which is what makes it both an exciting and a challenging thing at the same time.
Well, thank you for coming here and being part of our discussion.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Joining me, and thank you very much. It was great.